Hi there, how you doing? Here we are with FL Studio. Over the past 4, maybe 5 months, people have been asking me to do some more stuff on this, which I do, but I usually don't film it because doo-doos are done on the toilet. I don't know why I said that. Alright, so 1, we're at a slight disadvantage here because I can barely speak English. 2, my mind is everywhere. I'm just a bit weird. 3, that's 4. 3, let's see what we can do. Right, so first of all, I'm not going to number these tips. Numbering them is just going to make things a little crazy. Mushroom tip number 1 would be to familiarise yourself with the software. That's the most important thing, because if you're not familiar with what's going on, you're just going to be lost. Tip number 2, oh bollocks. Screw it, let's number the tips. If you've got more than one button on your mouse, what you need to do is go to General Settings. There we have the General Settings. It might be selected by default, but make sure multi-button mouse is selected. And then there's click and hold and special gesture functions. So say for example, we've got this right here. If I keep hold of the right mouse button, that pops up. It changes from a paintbrush to a razor. That enables me to slice things, which is very handy. All right, so let's actually try to put things together then, or just make something quick. I don't know. Number 3. Number 3 would be actually buy the software. If you're going to pirate stuff, you're not going to commit yourself to learning the software. You see, if you spend money that you've earned, you're not going to want to waste it. Typically, people don't waste money. So that way, if you spend money on it, you're going to spend time on it. You're going to invest time learning it. That's if you're serious, that is what you do. Now, the other thing you're going to need to spend your money on, eventually, is a decent set of speakers. You could try to make music using headphones. You could try to make music using regular speakers. The thing about doing that is most regular speakers colour the sound. This is an EQ, right? Let's pretend we've got sound coming through it. We do have sound coming through it, but I've muted it. Let's pretend this is music. So these speakers here are designed to give a fairly flat response. They're designed not to colour the sound. If you, for example, use maybe your Sony stereo speakers that aren't designed to make music with, what they have usually on them is something like this. See that? That's called colouring the sound. The speakers enhance certain frequencies, whereas these, they're designed to be flat, alright so. But obviously, if you know about sound, as soon as you take speakers like this into a room, the room can also colour the sound, which is why we add treatment to the room, fixing the acoustics or trying to fix the acoustics. I'm not saying this type of stuff that I've got in this room is the best. It's not. It has a purpose. It does work. I'm just telling you what happens. So be aware of that, and you'll eventually want to get something, you know, that works better than your headphones that you're using. Now, if you make music long enough, you'll eventually be able to make music using crappy speakers, using any speakers. You'll be able to sit speakers on your desk and make music because you'll know what's going on visually. All right, so let's do something then. The volume on the snare is lower than it was at default, which tells you that the snare was quite loud. The next tip would be to use something like this. You need an analyzer. Okay, next we need hats. All right, tip number, see, ran into a problem, forgotten how many tips I've given. The next mushroom tip I would say is to actually sit and listen to your speakers. You need to listen to music being played from them. And I'm not talking about your own music, I'm talking about regular music. Maybe a Spotify playlist of various types of music. That way you familiarise yourself with the way your speakers sound in the room that you're in. So that's pretty important, because if you don't know how your speakers sound and you're trying to make music, things are going to be here and there. You're going to make music that looks like this. For example, these headphones here sound different to these speakers. And these headphones sound different to my other headphones. And those sound different to the other headphones I have. And those sound different to the other headphones I have. And these sound different to the Sony speakers that I have. So sit there, listen to music, and just sort of get used to the way they sound. It'll take a bit of time, but you know, if you're into music, you would be listening to music through these speakers anyway. Alright, so we want to make these patterns a little different. So for example, on the kicks here, let's do something simple. We'll make that unique. Double click it. Then I go over to here, pattern 2, and I press the wheel. And then I'll change the colour on that. Alright, so now we have a lighter colour. Then I'll get rid of this one. Change that for the lighter one. Double click the lighter one, and that's this right here. What we'll do is add another kick right there. So now we have a slightly different pattern. And you can do that again. Change the colour on that. Or maybe that. Sounds a little weird. Now to make this last one different, what I'll do is just shorten it. Go like that. And then what I'll do is I'll make this one on the end unique, these hats. And right here we have massive. I don't think anybody uses massive anymore. Alright, so I'm using a square wave, that's just the default. You can use a sine wave, you can use a triangular wave, you can use one of these waves. Not really a fan of the sound of this, but I'm going to use it anyway. Alright, so like I said at the beginning of the video, there's a multi-button mouse function. So with that enabled, you can press the back button or the forward button and they do things. So when I press it on here, it does this. So these are the patterns that I've already made. So I can choose those and plop those into the playlist. Or I can go to a new pattern, which is that. New pattern. So I'm going to put that there. So right here is where I would key in the melody. I can do it with the mouse. Or I could just hit record and do it with the keyboard. Obviously when you do it this way it sounds robotic. A little stale, like there's no rhythm. So it depends on how you want your music to sound really. Alright, so what I'll do is just record this in manually. So the new pattern has been put in. And hit record and then press play. Alright, so what I can do now is quantize these, and that means to get everything lining up to the grid. Also these volume levels, what I can do is just right click and drag. Boom. So obviously this sounds like bollocks. So normally what happens is these snap to a certain area, depending on what you've got this set to. But if you want to go in between those without having to go through the menu, just press Alt. And you can do it at any distance. Otherwise, it's like that. So yeah, I'll just get them close enough, and that's good enough. Now what I'm going to do, because that sounds like balls, is I'm going to EQ this. Alright, so this is now where creativity and imagination kick in. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll turn the volume down on this, the dry amount. Alright, so that's entirely reverb, that's entirely going through this. So that now sounds like it's in a room. So we add some reverb to the kick. I don't normally do that. Don't want any bass coming through the reverb, so what I'll do, give it a HP of about that Right, so what I'll do is I'll just stick to using presets. Alright, just putting a filter on a kick. Alright, another tip. Try to avoid clashing frequencies. Also, try to avoid weird sequences. I've got a couple of weird ones here. I would normally iron some of these out. Alright, so that's a quick one. Not too sure if you've learnt anything from this. Hopefully you have. And I'll catch you in the next one.